So, I'm scrolling Instagram the other day and I come across this reel of Justin Bieber performing at Coachella. And I watched the whole thing and sent it to my wife and I say, "Wait, am I becoming a Bieber fan?" And she texts back, "Yep, you sure are." See, here's the thing. If you told 16-year-old me, the kid who was sneaking out to go to punk shows in Reno, Nevada, who thought anything on the radio was basically a corporate conspiracy, that one day he'd be watching Justin Bieber at Coachella and genuinely enjoying it, he would have walked away from you. But here we are. And honestly, I think the journey from that kid to where I am now is actually a story about becoming a better DJ and maybe even a better person. So I'm going to tell it. 6 parts, starting from the beginning. Stay with me on this one. I grew up in Reno, Nevada in the 90s, and if you know anything about Reno, it's not exactly a cultural mecca. Don't get me wrong, I love Reno. What it had, what a lot of smaller cities had in the 90s, was a real underground music scene. Punk, hardcore, and everything in between playing anywhere they could. Warehouses, basements, Mexican restaurants. I stumbled into that world by accident when I was 15 years old. I won tickets from the local cable access TV's version of Headbangers Ball to see Typo Negative, and a hardcore band named New Blood opened for them. It completely rewired my brain. I didn't even know music like this existed. Because here's what punk rock gives you. It opens your eyes to how big the music world actually is. It teaches you that what you hear on the radio is just one tiny slice of what's out there. That some of the best music, especially live music, exists off the beaten path. You just have to be willing to go find it. I still believe that. That hasn't changed. What it also gave me, and this took a long time to fully understand, was a framework for thinking about music that was almost entirely about depth and discovery. If something was popular, it wasn't automatically bad, but it also wasn't necessarily interesting to me. I wanted to dig. I wanted to find the stuff that took some work. That instinct served me really well as a music fan, and led to some of the most memorable live shows I've ever seen. As a DJ, though, it turned out to be more complicated. So I moved to Boulder to go to CU in the 90s. I started a hardcore band named Shogun with a fraternity brother and some people we found from a poster hanging in the student center. Also around that time, I got introduced to house music through some friends. Now, house music in the late 90s was not what it is today. It wasn't festival culture and EDM on main stage Coachella. It was still very much underground. Chicago, Detroit, New York, London. That's where it lived, and finding it felt like discovering yet another musical secret. So now, I've got punk rock on one side and house music on the other. Two completely different sounds, but similar stories. Music that exists outside the mainstream, made by people who genuinely care about it. And somewhere in there, me and a couple friends decide to pool our money and buy a pair of turntables and a mixer. Technics 1200s, the industry standard. We split the cost, dragged them back to the house, and started figuring it out. Keep in mind, the internet was still very new, so my friends and I would spend hours by ourselves trying to figure out how to beat match and mix records. We spent all our extra time at record stores pouring through the bins of vinyl to randomly pick some tracks to preview on their turntables. Side note, I still have those turntables. I use them at every single wedding that I DJ. COVID gave me the time to fully refurbish them, and they're still rock solid as ever. We started playing college parties, got a residency at a place called the Barrel House, which unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, and I'm having the time of my life. But I also had my own internal rules, very firm rules about what I would and would not play, and that's where things get interesting. My buddies and I are DJing a fraternity and sorority party in the early 2000s at a club just off Pearl Street. Big crowd, everyone's having a good time, and a girl comes up to the booth and asks me, very sincerely, very reasonably, if I can play some Britney Spears. And I said no. My internal justification at the time was completely sincere. We were hired as house music DJs. That's what we did. That's what we were good at. You wouldn't hire a jazz quartet and then ask them to play country. It felt like a reasonable position, but it was not a reasonable position for a frat party. But I held it. And honestly, that pattern kept going for years. Fast forward 15 years, an old college friend asks if I'll DJ her house party, and I agree, but with the understanding that I'm playing the music that I love. She says she's cool with it, so I show up, I play what I always played, and her guests are not really into it. They were polite about it, but the energy just wasn't there. Eventually I caved and played some Michael Jackson, and the room came alive immediately. And standing there watching that happen, I started to actually think about what I'd been getting wrong. Granted, I was still grumpy about how well the Michael Jackson went over. It wasn't that house music was bad, or that pop was secretly perfect for any audience. It was that I hadn't figured out how to combine both sides, how to bring my genuine excitement about music into a room while also giving people music they actually needed in that moment. That was the real problem, and solving it took longer than I'd like to admit. So here's what I eventually figured out. There were actually two separate things I needed to work through, and I'd been treating them like they were the same problem. The first one was simpler than I thought. Turns out I actually like pop music. Well, some pop music. I just hadn't admitted it to myself yet. I think Dua Lipa's Tiny Desk concert during COVID may have had something to do with it. Flo Rida's Wild Ones, Icona Pop's I Love It, and Usher's DJ's Got Us Falling in Love, they're all technically pop tracks, but they cross over into the electronic style that I had grown to love. They're also certifiable bangers. Turns out my taste was always broader than I was letting on. The second thing was bigger. In 2024, I started really leaning into what it means to be an open format DJ, which means mixing across genres, weaving different worlds of music together in a single set, and it's genuinely one of the most fun things I've ever done as a DJ. Because here's the thing. When you can take the dynamics and flow of a house music set and blend it into a set full of pop or hip hop, it can bridge both worlds. You're not compromising either one. You're doing something more interesting than either one on its own. If I'm not excited about what I'm playing, the energy doesn't come through in my sets. That's just the truth. So finding ways to stay genuinely engaged while also serving the room, that's the whole game. Because ultimately, being a great DJ is about building trust with your audience. And once you've built that trust, you can start to push boundaries, which is where the real fun lies.
So let's bring this all the way back around. Kid from Reno discovers punk and hardcore at 15, learns that the music world is huge and that the best stuff takes some work to find, moves to Boulder, falls in love with house music, buys a pair of Technics 1200s with his college friends, says no to Britney Spears at a frat party, clears the dance floor at a house party playing music he loves while everyone just wants to hear Michael Jackson. And then, slowly, through a lot of trial and error, figures out that those two things don't actually have to be in conflict. That you can be genuinely excited about what you're playing and still give the room what it needs. That open format DJing is one of the most creative things you can do behind the decks. That a great house remix of a pop track is its own art form. That Flo Rida's Wild Ones is a genuinely great song. That Justin Bieber at Coachella is worth watching all the way through. Fast forward to now. I run a wedding DJ and MC business in Lafayette, Colorado. I'm a co-founder of the Lafayette Music Fest, and I'm an open format DJ who will happily go from a deep house groove to a Beyonce banger to Britney's Toxic, and mean all of it. The punk rock kid taught me to take music seriously and dig deep. The house music era taught me what it means to actually DJ and put sets together. The years of stubbornness taught me that serving the room is the craft, and figuring out open format DJing taught me that you don't have to choose. If you're planning an event in Boulder County or beyond, a wedding, a corporate event, a school dance, and you want a DJ who's been on the whole journey and come out the other side, link in bio. Let's talk. I'll even play Britney if you want.